Have you ever looked up at an old building, maybe a cathedral or a university, and noticed those eerie, twisted stone figures jutting out from the corners? Sometimes they have wings, sometimes they're snarling, other times they just look really weird. They're called gargoyles. And for something that looks like it came straight out of a nightmare, they've stood the test of time in architecture, art, and even pop culture. Let's sculpt our way through it, right here, on History of Simple Things. Let's travel back to medieval Europe, around the 12th and 13th centuries. During this time, some of the grandest churches and cathedrals were being built. Notre Dame in Paris, the Duomo in Milan, and many others across France, Italy, and England. These buildings weren't just places of worship, they were power symbols. They were messages carved in stone. And those strange, monstrous figures you see on them? They had a very practical job. Believe it or not, gargoyles were originally functional water spouts. Yes, that terrifying creature frozen mid-scream was once the medieval equivalent of a drain pipe. When it rained, water would flow off the roof and pour out of the gargoyle's mouth, away from the building. This clever design helped protect the stone walls and foundations from erosion. Without them, rainwater would have slid straight down the masonry, weakening the mortar over time. But why not just use a simple pipe or a more elegant shape? Why the grotesque creatures? Well, there are a few reasons. One of them is rooted in symbolism. The medieval world was deeply spiritual, and people believed that evil could be warded off with sacred symbols or terrifying ones. These grotesque creatures were said to scare off demons and evil spirits. Ironically, they were guardians, monsters meant to protect holy places. There's also a popular legend that offers a mythical origin for gargoyles. It's the story of La Gargouille, a fearsome dragon said to have terrorized the town of Rouen in France. According to the tale, a priest named Saint Romanus tamed the beast and burned it, but its head and neck wouldn't burn, supposedly because they were made of stone. So the townspeople mounted the remains on the church as a warning. Over time, the story evolved into a broader practice, placing grotesque heads on buildings to ward off evil. And of course, let's not forget the role of visual storytelling in an era when most people couldn't read. Churches used art, sculptures, and stained glass to teach biblical lessons and moral warnings. Gargoyles, with their exaggerated features and wild designs, could represent sin, temptation, or hell itself. They were the physical embodiment of what awaited those who strayed from righteousness. Imagine a villager looking up at one of those twisted faces. He'd get the message loud and clear. Interestingly, not all gargoyles were terrifying. Some were actually quite humorous. You'll find carvings of animals, monks making silly faces, or strange hybrid creatures that look like something out of a fever dream. These quirky additions show that medieval stonemasons had a sense of humor, and often a bit of freedom in what they created. Think of it as a creative outlet in an otherwise rigid society. Every gargoyle had its own personality. Now you might be wondering, what about those stone figures that don't serve as water spouts? The ones that just sit there looking spooky. Those are technically grotesques, not gargoyles. It's a small distinction, but an important one. A gargoyle is a functional piece. It channels rainwater. A grotesque, on the other hand, is purely decorative, but both serve a similar symbolic purpose. They're meant to provoke thought, stir emotions, and make the viewer reflect. As time went on, architectural styles changed. The Renaissance brought cleaner lines, domes, and a shift away from Gothic excess. Gargoyles started to fall out of fashion, but they never truly disappeared. Some were preserved for their historical value, while others were reimagined in new artistic contexts. Their haunting presence lingered, a reminder of a time when architecture wasn't just functional, it was deeply symbolic. In the 19th century, the Gothic revival brought them roaring back. Think of universities like Yale, or buildings like the Washington National Cathedral. Designers used gargoyles to evoke a sense of tradition, mystery, and history. Even in modern times, you'll see stylized versions on certain buildings, not because they need to drain water, but because they create a sense of timelessness. Pop culture has played a big role in keeping gargoyles in the public eye. Remember Disney's Gargoyles TV show from the 1990s? Or the many fantasy and horror films that feature them as creatures that come to life at night? The mythology around them continues to grow, blending history, folklore, and imagination into something rich and lasting. But beyond their mystery and myth, gargoyles tell us something about the people who made them, about what they feared, what they believed in, and how they saw the world. These weren't just decorative choices. They were a bridge between function and faith, art and architecture, fear and protection. Today, if you visit cities like Paris, Prague, or Oxford and look up, you'll still see them, perched above, frozen in time, staring down with hollow eyes or mischievous grins. They're survivors, weathered by centuries of rain, snow, and sun. They turned stone into storytellers. So the next time you pass a building with a gargoyle peeking out from the shadows, take a moment. Wonder who carved it, what they were trying to say, what stories they hoped it would tell 1,000 years later. Maybe it was a prayer in stone, or maybe just a medieval joke that's still getting the last laugh. Either way, it's a reminder that even monsters can have meaning. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.